has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
It's Ferrall Coast to Coast in the biggest way possible right here on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty. We'll get Gopher to 2, Joe Lisi in here momentarily. Very busy show today. Game 3 of the NBA Finals tonight in Dallas. Celtics and the Mavericks. We will talk about it. We have a full baseball slate, including a couple afternoon games that we are going to get to. We have the golf. The U.S. Open starts tomorrow morning, very early at Pinehurst in North Carolina. We have a Golf Wednesday today with all of the trimmings as we get ready and a few other things. I got a lot of football for Joe today, too, which is going to excite him. We have Gabe Morency with us every day. He'll be with us in hour number 1 here on C2C today. Hour 2 will start Golf Wednesdays with Cam Stewart. Me and him will give you, as always, the outrights, the top 10s and 20s, etc., and the first-round leader bombs for the U.S. Open. We've got Coach James Young in the lion's share today as we get ready for game number 3 tonight, and Keith Stewart from Read the Line from Pinehurst, boots on the ground, as we say, getting ready for the U.S. Open tomorrow morning. As usual, Tuesdays and Wednesdays here on Coast to Coast, you get the extended version of the highly popular, most of the time, SportsGrid radio show, Carver and Lisi, with myself and the encyclopedia of college football, the one, the only, Go for the 2, Joe Lisi. Hi, Joe. How you doing?
Hi, Carver. How are you? This is it, baby. U.S. Open on the horizon. We got NBA playoffs, NHL, some hopefully overs of Major League Baseball, right? We were this close. We were a hair away from knocking down a huge parlay last night. That Arizona Angel game let us down, but hopefully tonight we could get back on the horse and maybe knock it out of the park.
Hopefully that is going to be the case, as we will get Joe back in the moment here. Joe's right. We had a couple of those late night overs that we were working on, and the Arizona game did let us down with the alt, and I got let down with some homers in that game too. As we were looking for some tater time to be able to go through with that. We do have some afternoon games that are on the docket for us. Of course, the Twins are finishing up that series with Colorado out in Minnesota, top of the 7th right now. The Twins started early and they have not stopped. They had a 5-run first inning. Since then, they have added home runs by Castro and Royce Lewis, who, by the way, that was his 5th homer day. He's got like 25 at-bats this year. He had a homer on opening day and then didn't homer again until he came back off the IL, missed a couple months, and now he has 4 homers since coming off 2 weeks ago. So 10-3, the Twins are pounding the Rockies right now, top of the 7th in Minneapolis. The Blue Jays have a 1-0 lead over the Brewers. That is in the bottom of the 4th up in Milwaukee. Davis Schneider with a home run in the top of the 1st, so that was in the 1st inning. He got things started. Not a good scene for the Nerfy crowd today if you were looking for the no-runs 1st inning with the Jays. So 1-0 for that. You've got Myers going against the Basset Hound up there in Brewtown. We do have a few games that are going to start momentarily. One this hour, one at the top of next hour. The Astros and the Giants are in San Francisco. We will have Framber Valdez and Logan Webb. So a very good pitching matchup for us out in the Bay. Right now, the Giants minus $125, plus 105 for the Astros, a total of 7.5. We are going to try, these games have been the last couple of nights dead unders. You had 3-1 with the Astros last night. You had the 4-3 game in 10 the night before that. And a very good pitching duel today. Some juicy home run numbers there, even for guys like Yordan Alvarez and Jorge Soler. So we'll see if we can go after a couple of taters there. I don't like going after Webb, but maybe Valdez. We will take a shot at him. And the A's and the Padres are the other afternoon game. That, of course, is at Petco Park with the great soft serve ice cream is always flowing. And Hogan Harris, Double H, against Michael King this afternoon. Padres minus 225 for that one, plus a $1.80 for the A's, a flat 8 total in that one as well. We do have Tatis, who has been on fire for the Padres. I like a little Cronenworth RBI today at plus a $1.75. And yes, we put it with the golf because the golf is going to be a big focus for us today. We have that afternoon baseball. We will go through all of those games tonight as well. Yankees are in Kansas City again tonight, where they pounded the Royals last night. So we'll talk about that. Red Sox and the Phillies are going to be up in Boston again. But speaking of Boston, they will be in Dallas. Game number 3 of the NBA Finals as the scene shifts here. Down 2-0. The Mavericks will try to get back into it. And as we've discussed here the past couple of days, how are they going to do that? Well, maybe somebody else besides Luka Doncic could provide a little bit of offense. That would be the first way that Dallas can get themselves back involved in this series. Kyrie has not done much, that's for sure. Luka has been carrying the mail. I know coaches told us the last few days and everyone else, usually the role players step up at home. We shall see. Porzingis still technically listed as day-to-day. We'll see if he's going to go tonight. That's been a big point of discussion for this game. But the Mavericks, a small favorite at home, total a lot lower than it's been the first couple of games. Can we get ourselves over the rainbow tonight and get Dallas? Because you need this tonight. I know this isn't hard-hitting stuff here. For us to have a series with a little bit of distance and a little bit of, get us excited for it, we need Dallas to make this 2-1. 3-0 Boston is going to shut a lot of people down, including myself. So let's hope that the Mavericks can keep us going in this series. We will get into the golf as well. As we mentioned, the U.S. Open tees off tomorrow morning at Pinehurst. We have Golf Wednesday today. Keith Stewart is there going through it. And really it is Scotty or anybody else. Are we going to go with the dominance of Scotty Scheffler, who is plus 2? I've seen him under 300 now, by the way. I saw a plus 275 this morning, a plus 280. So people are smashing away at Scotty Scheffler. Look, I tried this last week, right? What was our theme last week? He can't do it every week. Well, in the huge events, he's kind of showed that he can. Aside from what happened in Valhalla with the cops, he has been able to do it in just about every single big event this year. But we're a glutton for punishment, and we're going to go after Scotty today with a few guys when we get to the picks. But it should be a fun weekend. All I've heard about is how tough the course is going to be. And honestly, we shall see if that is going to be the case. We did get Joe back in the mix here before we head off, and we're going to get to Gabe next segment. Joe, I went through a couple of the baseball games. You were mentioning those overs last night. We do have San Diego, Oakland. We have San Francisco and Houston that are going to start within the hour here. Another low total with a couple good pitchers in that San Francisco game. You couldn't possibly be going after that on a getaway day, right, Joe?
We talked about it last night, Carver. 2 good pitchers, low number. Most likely everybody's going to bet the under. So this will probably be the game in the afternoon that sails through the total. So I'm going to take a shot. Again, I know they've been trending to the under throughout the series. It's been right on 8. That first game they got right on the number. I think today we blow right through it. So I'm going to take a shot. If it was in the 8.5, 9 area, I would say no because of the pitching matchup. The fact that we have a little bit of a discount, I'm willing to take a shot at this value.
You've got 7.5 in the other game as well, Joe, with Oakland and San Diego. That again away. In fact, the Houston Giant game is a flat 7 now. 7.5 for Harrison King out with the Padres. I like a couple guys on the Padres today. I don't think that Oakland's going to help us out much, just like they haven't helped us out with that total the last couple nights, but we shall see. Ferrall Coast to Coast on a Wednesday. We're just getting going. Carver and Joe Lisi in for Scotty. We'll come back. We'll get Gabe in the mix. We got a lot to do. A Game 3 tonight in Dallas, the golf, everything that we're doing. Coast to Coast. We're back on the grid right after this.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game Time Decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen. And the answer is, it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It's the BetMGM offer of the week. Get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. For all the games in the NBA Finals. Set your picks and shoot your shot. And turn any game into a must-watch. Download the BetMGM app, and it's on.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast, here on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Of course, Gabe Morency's with us every day on C2C. You can catch Sports Rage late night, 10 p.m. East, right here on the grid. Gabe, good to see you as always, my man. And you were just telling me when you were coming through, you hit a monster last night in Major League Baseball. In fact, I think I have it in front of me here as I found it on your Twitter feed. Orioles, Nationals, Skeens over 7.5 Ks, Yankees, Blue Jays, Dodgers, Gabe. Was that the one that you nailed last night?
Yeah, 46 to 1. I don't play these parlays on a nightly basis. I think I'm going to start sprinkling a little bit more. But I loaded up all my games first before I bet them. So I didn't bet. I gave most of these picks on the show yesterday. I talked about how the Baltimore Orioles shouldn't be underdogs at home. They win. Talked about how the Washington Nationals are like the second or third most profitable team in Major League Baseball this year as far as betting is concerned. They win as dogs. How was Paul Skeens plus 115? I can understand the 7.5 because we talked about it. He always sort of gets to that number right around there. But you're going to get plus money for it. A lot of soft lines last night. How are the New York Yankees minus 135? As hot as they are against the Kansas City Royals. It's funny. I was worried about the Dodgers at the back end, actually. And the Blue Jays, the bases were loaded for the Brewers late in the game. And the Jays got out of it. But I was like, man, I don't know about the Dodgers. Sometimes they stumble in game one back at home after road trips. And they just exploded last night. We're on the under 7.5 in this game right now. And speaking of bases loaded, the Brewers have the bases loaded with 2 out right now, 1-0 for the Jays. And I will play the under 7.5 in this giant Astro game coming up too.
Yeah, you got a great pitching matchup there with Valdez and Logan Webb going this afternoon out there in San Francisco to finish off that series, and it's been all under so far. The schemes part is funny because I didn't think, Gabe, he was going to come back out for that 7th inning. He had 7 strikeouts. He was at around the low 90s in terms of pitch count, but Shelton sent him back out there. He got the strikeout, and then he took him out. It's almost like Shelton knew.
It's almost like they said,
"Oh,
hey, listen, the prop is 7.5. A lot of people are taking the over. We want to keep the bandwagon." Yeah, and it was funny because he only had he had 2 strikeouts in the first inning, and I was like, oh, good. And it slowed down. He had like 3 strikeouts after 4 innings, I think. And I was like, oh, boy, but we'll see how long they leave him in the game. And then he just started racking him up. You know, I understand he's a great young pitcher and stuff, and it was a show of respect from the St. Louis Cardinal fans last night, but I wouldn't be impressed if I was a St. Louis Cardinals player. It's like we're getting shut down by this kid that's straight out of college, and you're cheering for him. You know what I mean? It's like the Ohtani stuff rubs some people the wrong way. Last year, the Seattle Mariners sold Toronto Blue Jays gear at their team shop when the Blue Jays showed up. And Mariner players took a pic. They were like, "What the hell is this?" They were like, "What are we doing here?" It's funny because in the old days they used to sell other teams' gear at stadiums. Nowadays it's kind of unheard of. But we saw even the Yankees did it, Carver, with Ohtani. They were selling Ohtani Dodger jerseys, and they even created their own Aaron Judge Ohtani hat.
Yeah, I saw that last week. Those looked awful, by the way. The Ohtani and the Judge hat with the 17 and the 99 on it. That was not
the only way that hat is cool is if you get them both to sign it. Then it's a major piece of worth, $250,000.
Right in front of the numbers on the brim, right? If you get them right on the brim, right in front of the numbers, both of them sign it there. I can understand that part. But I would not be walking around with that. I didn't think it looked that great. Not a fashionable item for me.
No, it wasn't the best looking hat. But I know this is the world. It's the world we're in right now. But skiing's the real deal. But if they go to 8.5, we're not going to be betting it, right? We've already the odds makers catch up fast to these phenoms. I know Zion Williamson tailed off as his career went on, but when he came into the league, I remember the first game he played, his over-under was 14.5 or so. He dropped 23 or whatever it was. And then it was 16.5. He dropped 23. It took about, 2 weeks. And then his point prop was 23.5. Wembanyama, same thing.
That's another great example.
Yeah, it took about 10 days before they're like, no. It's 22.5. It's not 16.5. It's 22.5.
Yeah, settling in all those numbers with him did take a while. As far as tonight goes, baseball, and then we'll do the basketball when we come back. Not a lot of big totals tonight, aside from that Yankee-Royal game, which is enormous at 10.5 in some places, but a lot of 7.5s and 8s on the baseball board in terms of the totals.
Yeah, you know what? At some point, it's going to catch up a little bit. I understand, the Yankees' bats are hot. I'm going to go back with the Bronx Bombers tonight. We saw Poteet in his last start was great, right? I mean, it was against the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he was rock solid. I think it's just a fair price. The Yankees, it's pretty crazy. We talk about the most profitable teams in baseball to bet on. You wouldn't figure the Yankees would be the most profitable team in baseball. It's baffling because you figure they'd be a public team, but they're actually not. To put in context, guys, the Dodgers are 17 games over 500 now, 16 games over 500. You're even money if you bet on every game. They came into last night, Mike, down $146 on the season, but they were 15 games over 500. Yet you look at the Yankees, they're a couple of games better than the Dodgers are, but they're plus $1,700 so far, 17 units on the season already. Yeah. The Yankees are somehow being undervalued. As hot as they are, even 55 cents tonight, I'll play the Bronx Bombers again.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they'll take care of business. That is a fat total, that's for sure, but I think they can get the win out there. All right, we'll come back, Gabe, and we'll get into the Celtics and the Mavericks Game 3 as they switch scenes down to Texas tonight. Hopefully, the Mavs can keep this a series, or else, Gabe, it's going to be shut the lights for a lot of people here if the Celtics go up 3-0 heading into a Game 4 this weekend. We'll come back for El Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High for Scotty, Gabe Morency with us, Sports Rage Late Night. We'll come back and get his thoughts on NBA Finals Game 3 next on the Grid.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Ferrall Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
And we are back from Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Gabe Morency's with us. Sports Rage late night every weeknight at 10 p.m. East on the grid. Now, Gabe, before we get to the basketball game, you know what we do here on Wednesdays. It's Golf Wednesdays. I got Cam. I got Keith Stewart. Everybody's giving golf picks all day. You never jump in on this, Gabe. Give me the 9 guys you got for this crazy top 20 parlay for the U.S. Open. Lay them out for me.
You know what? I think these 9 guys all have a legitimate chance of winning, but we can't bet them on all of them. But Scotty Scheffler is an obvious one. So we took Scotty Scheffler, Xander Schauffele is a top 10 machine in major championships. Rory McIlroy, Colin Morikawa, Bryson DeChambeau, who was actually my original pick that sort of jumped off the screen to me as the winner of the tournament, right? In the last 2 majors, he's been second in 6th, right? Or 7th, whatever, 6th. Mm-hmm. Played great golf coming over from Liv. He's knocking on the door, but I don't, I'm starting to sort of buy off of him a little bit, but I do think he's going to be in the mix of top 20. I got Ludwig Aberg, Hideki Matsuyama, Will Zalatoris, and Tony Finau. I think the odds on Will Zalatoris are just a little long, and he's worth a flyer to throw in here, but I'm coming back to Ludwig. I think Ludwig might be able to win this tournament. And I'm looking at Hideki Matsuyama as well to be right there in the mix. Obviously, Scotty Scheffler could be talked about and these other guys, but looking at some value here, I'm looking at Bryson, Ludwig, and Hideki Matsuyama as my 3 guys.
I like it, Gabe. Listen, you know that I'm not going to I'm not going to back a guy who's 3-1 pre-tournament. So you got a lot of guys.
No, maybe if it was the Houston Open or the Shell Open or one of these things.
Yeah,
right?
not
this
here.
is the best field in the world.
Not here, especially with how they're talking about how tough the course is going to be.
Well, they always say that, and it never is.
They said that about
like
Los
wrestling.
Angeles last year, and then 2 guys shot 62 on Thursday, Fowler and Xander. They both shot 62 on the opening day. So we'll see what it looks like tomorrow when they get out there. Game 3 tonight, Gabe. Celtics and the Mavericks. We moved to Dallas, -2.5 for the Mavs. This total is actually, I saw it at 212 yesterday. I'm sure you did too. Now back up to 214.5 in a couple places.
I'm starting to really jump up here, and I think it's a correlation with Dallas being back at home and people believing that the shots are going to fall for the Dallas Mavericks. Boston are going to score wherever they are. I'm part of this crew. I mean, like you said, this thing opened up at 2:12 immediately after the game ended the other night. And here we are right now. People are just hammering this over. I'm part of it. I think the Dallas Mavericks do win this basketball game tonight. They clearly have to. Similar situation with the Oilers. And speaking of which, I guess the Panthers are still in Florida right now, which normally I would not. I'd be like, you hear these stories all the time in the regular season.
I know.
Right?
Travel stories.
Oh, they rolled in at 5 a.m., bet against them. It's like, they won 5-0 or whatever after. You know what I mean? It's a little bit overvalued, this stuff. But this is a little bit different. This, we're talking about a 6.5 hour, 7 hour venture here, man. Right? It's a long flight. The Florida Panthers have been in the East Coast this whole time in a little bubble. Now suddenly they got to fly for the longest distance between cities in Stanley Cup history, and they're still in Florida right now. Edmonton left right away. They were smart. They got the hell out of there. And Florida didn't. And now there's a flash flood in the area, and no flights are allowed to leave. So I'm sure the Panthers will eventually get out. In the grand scheme of things, it's not advantageous. It's good for Edmonton. We'll put it that way. This is a good little thing for the Edmonton Oilers right now for tomorrow.
Well,
but I like the Mavericks tonight to win the game.
Especially since Edmonton, I'm going to assume, at the minimum, maybe didn't go back immediately after the game the other night, but at first thing the next morning. First thing yesterday morning, I'm sure, is when they went back and got themselves settled.
I think
at home.
they did, actually, Mike. I was surprised, too. I was wondering.
It's possible.
I was wondering. I was like, you know what? It makes sense for them just to wait till the morning, but not really. You just lost. You want to get out of there, and they were facing
it's such a long flight. Sleep on the plane.
That's the thing. It literally is like nearly 6 hours.
That is misery. That flight. So you know what? That probably.
Hey, I'd like to know, Mike, how much money was bet? Because the Edmonton Oilers were asked, "What did you guys do on the plane?" They said, "We played poker."
Yeah, we slept when we got home. We played cards all the way home afterwards. All right, so you like the Mavs to win tonight, make the series 2-1. We've got the baseball for you as well. Gabe, we will see you tonight. Sports Rage Late Night right here on the grid every night, and back here tomorrow. Scotty's going to be out in Vegas tomorrow, Gabe, out at the fights the next couple of days. So he's going to be having a blast out there. Him and Mafia on that big jumbo jetliner heading out there tonight after the show. So safe travels. And then, Gabe, we'll see you later on Sports Rage. Gabe Morency, we're back on the grid right after this.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Ferrall Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. only on SportsGrid.
And we are back from Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. Joe, they are in a rain delay in Minnesota. 10-5, the Twins lead the Rockies right now. And that is in the bottom of the 7th. So a miserable time to have a rain delay there. Bottom of the 5th in Milwaukee. The Jays still have a 1-0 lead on the Brewers off of that Schneider homer in the first. I know the Brewers had the bases loaded last inning. I guess they did not get anything out of it. So 1-0. They do have a man on first and one out in the bottom of the 5th. We already mentioned Astros, Giants, and A's and Padres are going to get going within the hour. And we'll do all of tonight's games later on, Joe, on Coast to Coast as we get ready for the full slate of baseball. But we will start today with NBA Finals game number 3 in Dallas as the Celtics take a 2-0 lead down to Texas, looking to what, Joe? Extend the lead to 3-0. We certainly hope that doesn't happen. This is it, Joe says. This is it. This is the night because it's over if they don't get it done. We'll start with Jason Tatum here today to preview the game. Of course, Tatum has not done a lot in terms of scoring, Joe. Now, he has done a lot, obviously distributing, rebounding, defensive side, but we're used to Tatum 25, 30 points. He has not done that so far in this series. He understands, though, Joe, that he has to get that going at some point.
Yeah, I think being in the finals 2 years ago has helped me in this moment. And like I said, I understand that I do need to be more efficient. I do need to shoot the ball better. I would not disagree with anybody on that. But, I'm not letting it bother me, right? I'm still trying to find ways to impact the game and dominate the game in other areas.
Very good. Very good.
Areas,
team player. They're a team player. That's what it comes down to.
Look,
legacy.
We've discussed this, Joe. I mean, they're a deep team. Whereas we're on the Mavericks because nobody's really stepping up outside of Luka. If Tatum's not scoring like he does, you have Brown, you have White. Porzingis obviously isn't going to be there. At least we don't think he's going to be there tonight. You have some other guys that can supplement some offense, Drew Holiday, etc. So he doesn't need to do it, Joe. But I would have to think at some point, I hope it's not tonight, but at some point in this series, you are going to see some huge night from Jason Tatum.
Well, I mean, to be a part of the offensive output, right? I mean, if he's going to score 10 and grab 10 rebounds and 10 assists, that's okay as long as they get the W, but he's still their best player. So, if they're going to win an NBA title, Carver, it comes down to you still want to be a part of it. You want to show that your productivity actually contributed to the W's and the title. So, here's the thing. Porzingis is out. He might have a bigger role, but hopefully it isn't tonight. Hopefully it's in Game 5 after the series is tied, maybe 2-up, right? Let's see this thing get to 6 or 7 games, and then potentially Luka and Kyrie pull it out. I do believe their backs are against the wall. The good news is if we're going to bet this tonight, and we are, it's either, one last hurrah, right? Luka for 30, Kyrie for 30, and the Mavericks laying the money line at -142. If we lose, then we know we're dead and buried. At least we know our outcome after Game 3.
That has been our Maverick winning formula parlay, right, Joe? Throughout the playoffs, the 30-30 money line for Luka, Kyrie, and the Mavs. We'll see if we can get that across the line. Yeah, I'm skeptical, Joe. As you know, I got a little beat down here over these first 2 games. I don't feel great about it.
I feel like Game 2 was Game 2. They were there. They were tied at half.
Yeah, I know. But is he going to have 30-point triple-doubles every night? Where's everyone else? I need someone else to get involved because I don't think he's going to have 30-point triple-double every night.
No. But here's the thing. We don't want P.J. Washington. We just want P.J. Washington to hit some crucial threes. We need Kyrie to step up and actually shoot the ball. He can't have, Carver, he can't have 8 points at the half and Luka have 29. When they were winning games against Minnesota, when they were winning games against Minnesota, there were games where Kyrie had 18 and 20 at halftime, and Luka was the one with 14 or 15. We need that type of productivity out of Kyrie. He can't wait to shoot until the third quarter is over. Then by then, we're dead. He's got to step up right from the get-go.
He's got to get hot early. I don't disagree with you on that. Drew Holiday, I think, has been excellent for the Celtics so far. He had a big game scoring at 26 in game number 2. I think he's been their best player all around through the first 2 games of this series. Here is Joe Mazzulla. He agrees with my assessment, and he praises Holiday.
I'd say the biggest thing is like when you get someone and you realize that everything everybody says about him is true. That's probably one of the ultimate compliments that you can get is like your character is what it is. It's what you say that it is. It's what other people say that it is. It's people that have noticed things. So I'd say that like everything everyone said about him when we first got him, it's been even better. And just the type of person that he is, his humility, his competitive nature, the way he treats his family, the way he treats his teammates, how hard he plays, and just his willingness to do everything.
Can we just keep
what do you mean? He's pumping the guy up, Joe. Give him a break. Pumping the guy up.
He cooks.
Rubbing
he
his
cleans,
back a little bit.
He reads bedtime. He's almost like you. He cooks, he cleans, he reads bedtime stories. Like, come on. I need to know. Not only that, Mazzulla way too comfortable. The fact that this is 2-0, Mazzulla's like in the driver's seat. He's got the bus on cruise control. If this was 0-2 or 1-1, I wouldn't think he'd be doing so many greetings and salutations towards his play. The fact that he's up 2-0, he's got this bus on cruise control. Wait until they get slapped around tonight.
I don't know, Joe. Nothing really changes with that dude. Nothing really changes, right? Like it's like the same. It's always steady. He gives you nothing.
Steady Eddie.
He's got the personality of wallpaper. You know, it just. I don't think that, and maybe that's a good thing for that team. They don't need, the boisterous head coach or the opinionated head coach. They just need someone like that, just keeping the train moving. And that's all that Mazzulla does for them.
Hey, we got a job to do.
Seems to work.
You'll get it done. It's okay. It's okay, Booby. Don't worry. You'll be all right. It's okay. You got 3 turnovers. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You'll get it next time.
Rub his back a little bit. It's okay. Here's Kyrie, please. Joe. Of course, we need a big bust-out performance from Kyrie in game number 3. He has not been there to support Luka in the way that us or anybody else expects him to. Kyrie says we'll turn things around in game 3.
The coaching staff is doing a great job preparing us. But it's our job as players to make those adjustments and play even harder, especially when the game's getting a little out of balance or we have a lead and we want to extend it a little bit. So a lot of it is just a learning curve for myself, for my teammates, and also a peace of mind that we give each other that, we want to give ourselves a chance by leaving it all out there on the floor and playing our best and preparing the best way we can. So that's literally been the focus since game 2 ended. Was just putting our best foot forward, coming back home, feeling good, feeling familiar, and letting our game speak for itself.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, he's saying all the right things, just like he's been saying all the right things for months, Joe. I think that the mindset is going to be there, and now he's got to go out and just do it tonight. That's all. He's played it, and I know this has been thrown around a lot in the last because there's so much time, Joe, between these games, that it allows like several hundred unnecessary narratives to get out into the world. And I saw one the other day that, it's the biggest finals game. They're like, no, it's not. The dude played with the Cavs in those series against the Warriors. Those were massive games, game 6s, game 7s. He knows what he needs to do tonight, Joe, and hopefully he gets it done. I think that's pretty much where we go.
Are you going to back him?
I'm doing the 30-30 money line with you. I'm in. I'm going to do that. That's been our go-to when we need a big Maverick performance. That is what has gotten us through the line. Ferrall Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Friscotti. We're back after this.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Ferrall Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Ferrall Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us here today. All right, Joe. Actually, first, Joe, before we get back to that, I do need to tell you about BetMGM and what they're doing here for baseball season. How about their Swing for the Fences free-to-play promotion that they have going on right now? You need to download the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Of course, if you have your BetMGM Sportsbook account, go on there. This is free to play once a day, every single day. Swing for the fences. Play as the batter and pick an area of the strike zone. Get a single, double, triple, home run, or a flyout. You can play once a day. I got a single today. Account holders who play will have the opportunity for a reward if they get a hit. Reward types include parlay boost tokens, odd boost tokens, SGP boost tokens, bonus spins in casino-eligible states, and bonus bets. All rewards expire in 24 hours. It is free to play. Get yourself a token every single day right there. Get yourself a hit on that free-to-play Swing for the Fences on your BetMGM mobile app. All right, Joe, let's finish up what we have here. I gotta give you Luka as well. Now, we know Luka's hurting. He tells everybody every chance that he gets. He had the shot before Game 2 at a 30-point triple-double. He's allegedly going to have another one of those shots tonight before Game 3. Has he found any positives, Joe, from the Mavs, despite losing those 2 games in Boston? Was there anything he took out of those 2 games that is going to help them going forward?
Just trying to keep getting open looks. I think our defense has not been bad, but just we can't really score. That's our main problem right now. But I think we're getting some great looks. And like I said, we have confidence that everybody can make a shot that's shooting the ball in our team. So we just got to keep believing it.
We need you.
Well, I think what he could have said, Joe, is that they aren't scoring, as in his teammates. He's scoring, they're not scoring, is what he could have said. But I know he doesn't want to do that.
Oh, he's a real leader. I mean, hopefully he steps up with a 40-point performance, and it's just him and Kyrie. Again, I'll just say this: you have to understand the identity of your team. You said it just as good as anybody else. You said that there's no way P.J. Washington was going to drain 25 and 27 points per night, especially now in the NBA Finals. So expecting P.J. Washington to be the savior of this offense is absolutely ridiculous. We know who the stars are. They're two veterans. They're above average, almost elite type of guards. You got to ride these guys. It's the same MO of having LeBron or any of the big, dogs back in the day. MJ, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley. Go back to it. These guys have to be pigs when the title's on the line. Otherwise, if you're going to rely on some scrub, you're never going to win anything.
It's very true, Joe. You're never going to win anything if you have to do that.
I don't mind every now and then. But the fact, when I look at the scorecard and I see Kyrie with 2 points with 4 minutes left in the second quarter, that is absolutely ridiculous. At some point, Jason Kidd has to say, there's some sense of urgency, guys. You really have to push tempo and let's go. I don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. And they need to start doing that tonight. And it would be helpful if those other guys, even though we're saying that Washington wasn't going to hit 5-6 threes a game like he was doing earlier in the playoffs, you got to hit a couple. You got to hit a couple, especially in key moments.
That's it.
Got to get a few in there.
2 or 3.
2.5.
Make the guy. Yeah.
Go ahead. No,
don't make the guy what?
I know where we're going. I know you don't want him having 25 points. I know, because that's going to take away from everybody else that you're backing. You want just enough to win the game. That's what Joe wants. He only wants enough of guys like PJ and Jones and Lively, only to a point, and then that's it. And everybody, he wants Kyrie and Luka to be a pig the rest of the time. That's pretty much what Joe's looking for.
Well, otherwise we'll be dead, Carver. That's it. We're on life support right now. We're down 2 games to none. We got to steal. We have to find a way. We're favorites. We're at home. We got to find a way to steal it. And if I'm at home, I want to pour it on. Yeah, let's lay
2.5 tonight. You're laying it. You're laying the 2.5. Let's lay it. Is what you just said.
140. Like when I put in the parlay tonight, I'm laying the 140. I don't want this to come down to 121, 120. We win and we don't get the cover. So I like Dallas. I like Luka. I like Kyrie. I'm laying the money line as opposed to 2.5. It opened at 1.5. Now it's bet up to 2.5. I don't want to jump on that movement. I'd rather just take the money.
I think also, Joe, the 1.5 to 2.5 was the Porzingis stuff. I'm sure that played into the 1.5 to the 2.5 as well. We also saw 212.5 as the total when it opened. That today, because I think it was still 212 yesterday, Joe, if I remember correctly. We did the radio last night. Up to 214.5 here this afternoon. So that now, Joe, that's getting hammered on the upside.
It is, but again, I'm not chasing in this moment. I don't care how Dallas wins, just win, right? Their backs are against the wall, and again, this is the final straw. They lose this, there's no, forget it, they're done. Whether they lose in 4 or whether they lose in 5, they got no shot to come back, right? So they have to win tonight. I don't care if it's a lower scoring game in the 90s. I don't care if they get into the 130s. All I care about is win the game and have Luka and Kyrie take 80% of the shots, and I'll be happy.
Joe has a very specific game plan for the Mavericks tonight. It's very specific. It involves nobody else except Luka and Kyrie. That's it.
I'm not getting cute with it.
He doesn't want anybody else getting in the mix here whatsoever. Joe, I think the Mavericks win tonight. I'm with you. I would lay to 2.5, Joe, because guess what? None of these games it's so rare that they're close down to a bucket. And you're right. Tonight will be the night we get burned. I think we're safe. I'm going to lay the 2.5. For our little thing we're doing with the 30-30, I'll put the money line in because you're right. That will bother me if we don't hit that because it's a 2-point game. But I think for the single bet, Joe, I'm laying the 2.5 with the Mavs tonight. I'm not touching the total as much as I like totals because they haven't sniffed these 214s, 215s, 216. They haven't sniffed it, Joe. So I'm not going after that tonight. Ferrall Coast to Coast here on a Wednesday. Carver, High, and Joe in for Scotty. We'll come back, give you the player props next after this.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Ferrall Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Back on Coast to Coast right here. We're waiting back for Carver to come back. We were talking. I don't even know what happened there. What happened?
You know what you call that, Joe? You call that a quick. You call that a quick move, Joe. That's what you call that. A quick move. Something.
All right, we'll wait for Carver. He's dealing with some technical difficulties. I don't know what Carver was going to do, but we were talking about some of the games tonight in regards to the prop bets. We'll take a look at some of the most bet and least bet prop bets in regards to the Boston Celtics and Dallas Mavericks. Have Drew Holiday over the 10.5 assists tonight. Luka Doncic under the 9.5 assists. Jason Tatum over 9.5 rebounds. Where'd they come up with that? Kyrie Irving over the 23.5, and Hauser over 1.5 3-pointers. I will say this. I don't know about Jason Tatum, the 9.5 rebounds. On the road without Porzingis in the lineup, I would take a shot in terms of 25-plus points. If you have anywhere near minus 110 or plus money, have to take a look. But I'm in on Luka and Kyrie tonight. The only way I believe Dallas will win this matchup is if they start scoring early, get ahead, especially before halftime. Have to have a halftime lead. They have to push tempo. Can't trail by 10 or double digits like they did in game one, and certainly not in the third quarter like they did in Boston in game number 2. I think if this game does come down to the wire, the 2.5 might come into play. That's why I would lay the 142 in regards to the Mavericks. I still believe Dallas potentially wins this series, but it all starts tonight. Dallas needs to step up. You look at the series odds, Boston minus 800, Dallas plus 550. Now, the 550 price is good when you look at it overall, almost 6-1. But Carver and I talked about it in regards to the odds. If you're going to take game 6 or game 7, I still believe that value is around 750 or 850, and then the game 7 is 950. So if you want to take a shot that way, that is better value than potentially just backing Dallas at plus the 550 mark. I still believe Dallas is alive. We'll see how this game does play out. First 2 games did trend to the under. I don't know about tonight's total. Again, it's a no play for me, even though it opened at 212. Now we're up to 214.5. no Porzingis. Maybe that means Tatum and Brown will keep and kick this game wide open in terms of tempo. We'll see, especially on the road. If you're the road team, you're playing with a 2-0 lead right now. You want to push tempo and put the pressure on Luka and Kyrie to match you score for score. So we'll see how that plays out. What do we have here in regards to the graphic? What is this? Before 2003, teams that were down 0-2 as home favorites are a whopping 6-0 straight up and 3-3 against the number. I know that probably Carver likes that statistic. That scares me a little bit now that we're just throwing this out. But hey, it's do or die if you're the Dallas Mavericks. They're down 2-0. You dominated Minnesota. You dominated because of your guard play. You have to step up now. You're playing at home. There's no excuse. I don't disagree in terms of getting Washington and some of the role players involved, especially early on. You want to make sure that those role players are involved offensively and defensively. But as this game progresses, second quarter, and more importantly, the third quarter, right after halftime, the meat of the game has to be Luka and Kyrie. They have to play a majority of the minutes, and also they have to score a majority of the points and take a majority of the shots. So if that's the case, I think it's a big night. I think Luka potentially 35-40 is not out of the realm of possibility. I believe the last time I looked at Kyrie, too, when I looked at 30-plus, I believe he was 310. I got to double-check that. I put it in last night, 310 for 30. You want to take a flyer on Kyrie to potentially break out. 35, if I'm not mistaken, was in the area of about 7.5 plus 750 or 8-1. So that's pretty good value for Kyrie. We know that he's come close in regards to 36 and 30 points, respectively. The one thing, if you want to take a contrarian play, the one thing that Kyrie has not done throughout, I want to say, the series in Minnesota, and more importantly, the series here in Boston through 2 games, is he hasn't hit the 3 ball. So you want to take a shot on Kyrie, 3 threes or 4 threes. That might be an area to catch some value tonight. When Carver and I return, I think maybe, just maybe, Major League Baseball, and maybe we'll put it with the golf right here on Coast to Coast. We're coming right back. Keep it where it is, baby.
Look at the stats. 5 out of the top 6 televised rated games on the WNBA this year all involve Caitlin Clark. The only one that doesn't was a second half of a doubleheader in which Caitlin Clark played the first game.
Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back, too. I guess this... Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the room, what are you doing with the Judge MVP number? Books are now 2-1, standalone favorite. What are you doing with the Judge number?
What do I do with the MVP? I let them bet Judge at what? Even money? Come on in. I mean, you have to acknowledge now that he's the guy.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.